Yo, it's your boy Vegabomber here, and welcome to Vegabomber Land. Alright, now it's time to do some spoiler talk, because I know there's some people who want to get deep undercover on this IT thing, or really, the IT thing. Hey, before I get started, let me tell you something about this Kiss t-shirt that I got on. Now, they're wearing Stein's clown white makeup, and so, really, if you think about it, Gene Simmons is probably the closest to Pennywise than probably any other thing that's not related to the IT world, or let me say it this way, the Stephen King's It world. So yeah, true story. When they went to go shoot their first album cover, the photographer kind of ignored them because he was waiting for the band to show up, and he didn't realize that these four guys were the band because they were wearing makeup. He really thought that they were just clowns. See? Yeah. What other channel might you get that kind of a tidbit? But anyway, let's move on. Strangely enough, the only people who die in this film are little Georgie in '88. He gets his arm eaten off first, and then he gets completely mauled by Pennywise. And then two of the bullies get eaten up in '89, and from there on, right? So from '89, the Kylo Ren starter kit gets chewed up and killed. He gets straight up wrecked. And then Henry Bauer, one of the main bullies, ends up getting thrown down a well. Not by Pennywise, but by Mike, you know, the black kid in the film. So yeah, 3 major deaths in the film, a bunch of parents we don't know nothing about that just seem kind of weird walking around, and then of course there's our characters, the Losers Club. So let me talk about them. Ah yes, so one of the great things about this movie is the children actors playing their roles, because these characters did come alive, although I would say there were 2 that didn't, and I'm going to get to that. But first, we're starting off with the positive stuff, right? So here we go. I love the idea of Bill, the stutterer, getting to a point where he does become a natural leader and turns out giving a speech where he doesn't stutter because he's willing to take that challenge. He's willing to say, that's it, Pennywise. I'm not afraid of you anymore. There's nothing you can do to me. It's worse for me to go back home with a bunch of people who are still wallowing over the death of my brother than it is for me to actually come into this crazy knee-bolt house and search your butt down and kick your tail. And that's exactly what Bill was doing. Bill was turning. He held to his gun throughout the whole movie. He believed that his brother was still alive, and then once he believed that maybe that wasn't the case, he acted accordingly. So he had a wonderful arc. So Bill, the stutterer who didn't stutter when he made an important speech, and then led the guys into that room to go tear mess up. And that's exactly what they did. So like Richie. So Richie was kind of like this keep it real kid. So he was the kid that was cussing. And he was like, what? Anybody else see this stuff? This has got to be crazy. There's no way this kind of stuff happens. Over clowns? Really? So you loved him because he was kind of the voice of the skeptic sitting in the audience who was saying, yeah, isn't this a little bit too crazy? Isn't this a little stupid to believe this mess? So Richie immediately kind of grounded you. He may have cursed a little bit too much at some point, but I get it. I get what they were going for. You know, when kids are not around the adults, they act like their version of the adults, and so they learn all the cussing from the adults. So here they are, you know, throwing it down. So there was Richie, keeping it real, and eventually becomes a BA, and he gets one of the best scenes there at the end, in the ending, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Then there's Beverly. I guess we can see why Beverly's the fearless one in the group, because she had to deal with an incestuous father back home. So therefore, she kind of grew up faster than maybe she needed to, but it gave her an edge. It made her fearless, and that's why she was able to jump over that cliff and into the water below before the boys were, because, you know, she's already seen some things. And so the actress that plays her, Sophia Lillis, she did a great job. And it's funny because when she has that scene with the pharmacist who says, yeah, with those glasses on, you look like Lois Lane. Well, actually, he's kind of right, because she kind of does look like Amy Adams, and Amy Adams played Lois Lane in The Man of Steel. Just saying. See the resemblance? And then you got our portly, sweet friend, Ben, who's, you know, the nerd buddy there. He's the guy that goes to the library and reads up when he could be out playing with the kids because, well, he doesn't really have any friends. And so books are his good friends. And he's reading up about this town because he's also new to that town and finds out some pretty interesting tidbits. And so that scene with him and the librarian, and then him later on, just you can see the lust in his eyes, and he just really wants this girl, and he writes her this poetry. And well, yeah, Ben was our softie and our chubby lad. And, well, yeah, he served a role. He needed to be fleshed out a little bit more, but we still got more of him than we did Mike and Stan, and I'm getting to that too. So then you got Eddie. So Eddie's the sickly kid. He's the kid that the mom is making him think that he's so frail that he needs to take all these pills because she's being way overprotective in a very obsessive way about him. And he learns a little bit about what placebos are, even though he pronounces placebo gazebo. Ah, yes, Stan, the Jewish boy, and of course, finally, Michael, the last two. I'm going to do these two together because, well, quite frankly, this is the most disappointing of these characters, I would say, because they didn't get enough time to really shine. Like with Stan, it was interesting to see him afraid of a painting. I remember some crazy, goofy paintings that were at my Meemaw's house, and yeah, no, it wasn't too cool if you looked at those things just right at night with the lights dark when you were younger. So I got Stan on that, but Stan I really felt like didn't really have much input here, and even worse than Stan was Mike Hanlon. So that's really disappointing, and I said this in my non-spoiler talk, that here's this kid who starts off, one of the first stories is him, and that whole thing with the sheep and the bolt putting between their head and all that good stuff. It was set up to say, oh, this might be a good, pretty decent character here. But then he kind of just disappears throughout the middle of the movie, and then he's hanging with these kids as he's just being tortured by Henry Bauer and that crazy son of a bee, right? You see how I caught myself there? Yeah. Anyways, it's Sunday, so I'm trying to, you get me, you feel me. But at any rate, I think with Mike being kind of played back to the background, we didn't get to learn more about the problem between Mike and Henry Bauer, the bully, right? And I'm pretty sure there'd be some racial stuff in there involved as well, but still, it just seemed like to me that Henry Bauer was being set up to be crazy, right? He gets killed, and he has this whole long-standing feud with Mike, and it never gets explored. We never see what really started all that between them, right? It's not just because he was packing meat and doing all that kind of stuff and doing a delivery. There's something else there, and we just never really got that. So that was kind of disappointing. So that was one of the parts of the movie I would say was probably weak. It kind of makes you scratch your head and go, huh? Why wouldn't you develop this? I mean, because we got it. We understood Bill. We understood his thing with Georgie, his younger brother being gone. We understood Beverly, because you laid that on. We understood Eddie and his mom trying to protect him from everything on every level. We got them, but just, again, man, my boy Mike and man, Stan, y'all got played in this one. And just like that, the adults in this film were pretty creepy. They were pretty absent. They just seemed to be detached from everything that was going on, and I feel like that was an opportunity. It had been nice in some of the places where they were kind of really letting you know that these kids are it. It's like, yeah, we got that the kids are all about it. They're the main plot, the main thrust of the storyline. But it would have been nice to understand a little bit about these parents. Why are they so detached? Is it because they live in a town where the kids are always dying every 27 years? Is it because they were the kids who survived Pennywise and therefore they grew up to be adults who were, painless or numb? Let me say it that way, not painless, but numb. There had to be something else there, because otherwise it doesn't really make too much sense. These kids would already be totally screwed up because of the way their parents are anyway. So I don't know. It just seemed like there was some stuff that could have been fleshed out about the parents. Didn't quite get that. And maybe we'll get that more in Chapter 2. Now, I've definitely got to talk about the ending. I've had a chance to think more about that ending since I made the non-spoiler review, which I made pretty quickly after seeing the movie. The movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes. And while it's paced pretty well, I would imagine on the second viewing, the third viewing, where it probably gets a little repetitive or tired is in the third act. Because we know in the third act that the kids are no longer afraid of Pennywise. So if you're no longer afraid of Pennywise, he really can't hurt you. So now you're really kind of stuck in a place where, all right, show me how you're going to end this movie, because we already know that Pennywise has got no strength now because they're just not afraid of him. Even down there in that well where they're at. So I have to say that third act, while seeing Bill change and become leader and seeing Richie finally just say, you know what, screw this stuff, I'm going to have to take a clown out, which was kind of cool to watch him say that. That was nice, but I feel like that ending, the landing didn't stick as well as it needed to. I mean, you landed the plane, and I think we give that ending a break because everything else in the movie was going so well in terms of the storyline, the plot before this, the performances of the child actors was great, But I've got to say, as I think back on it some more, that ending is it was okay, but it didn't have any oomph. And this film could have been even better. It probably would even be a 10 out of 10 if that ending would have been just a bit more, have a bit more gravitas to it. And then at the end, it kind of seemed a little bit repetitive because we'd seen this. Plus, I didn't like the idea that they had said in the movie, okay, if we stick together, it can't hurt us. And so what were they doing? They were down there and they would hear something, and what they do, they'd go off and separate from the pack. And it's kind of like, wait a minute, you just said that the way you succeed is if you stay together. So it seemed like that was a little too easy, that they just, oh, I strangely need to walk over here and see what's going on, though I know what my greatest fears are because they're mine, and I know that Pennywise preys on fear, but I'm going to go over there anyway and allow myself to get pulled away. It seemed kind of dubious after you've just already said that you're stronger together, and that's what they agreed, and that's why they went in there together. So that kind of throws it off. I didn't like the idea that Ben, in order to break, I guess, Beverly out of the state that she was in as she was floating, was just a kiss. That's just as cringeworthy as Interstellar to me, where in Interstellar it was like, well, the one thing we didn't count on was that love was the one thing we didn't factor into this. So it seems like, again, we go to this really odd place. And Interstellar was about talking about love was the one thing that they didn't count for. And here, now it's the love of a boy named Ben for this girl who he doesn't even have any idea if she likes him at all. But a kiss from him is enough to wake her up. And that took me out of the movie for a second, but I was still enjoying it because overall this movie was still good. So I had some problems with the kiss. I know it was supposed to work, but I didn't buy it at all. But all that being said, as I said earlier in the non-spoiler review, it is still a fun movie. It's still a movie worth watching. It's still an entertaining movie. If I had my druthers, you clear out a couple of those things, this movie would have been a masterpiece. I don't call it a masterpiece. I think right now there'll be a lot of hype where people might think of it in those terms, but not me. I don't think it's a masterpiece. I do not believe it's a 10 out of 10. But I definitely think it's entertaining and it's a good film, and I'm not sure at the moment if I'd buy it on DVD, which is the ultimate test, is that I'm on the fence about it. Maybe I need to see it again and see. So anyway, these are my thoughts, my views on this. It's your turn. I'll meet you in the comments section. Let's wrap. Let's talk about it. Yep, it's your boy Vegabomber, and I'm out. You. You know, if you think about it, Gene Simmons kind of does, and somebody look like Pennywise in a way. If you imagine those bat wings, it's kind of like teeth. I don't know. I can see it.